Welcome to Step Up to the Sport, a conversation series bringing together the minds of women's baseball and women in baseball. I'm Kate Haines, the moderator of today's conversation and the archivist for the International Women's Baseball Center. Our host today will be IWBC Director, Sabre Vice President, and Kent State University at Stark Associate History Professor Leslie Heaphy. We are joined by Shakeia Taylor, where we're going to be talking about baseball and writing.
Shakeia Taylor is a Chicago-based freelance writer. She writes about baseball as it relates to women, history, and Black culture. Her work can be found at Baseball Prospectus, SB Nation, and Fangraphs. Welcome, Shakeia.
Hi.
And Leslie, you can take us away.
All right. So welcome. And I'm so excited to be here tonight to chat with you, Shakeia. I'm excited to hear it's a wonderful thing to be able to put baseball and writing and books all in one conversation. My favorite things in the world. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So welcome. And thank you for doing this for us. So the obvious first question I have to ask you is, how did you get interested in baseball?
Wow. So I would say my first interaction with baseball was definitely when my family moved from North Carolina to Youngstown, Ohio in like 1993. We moved in November, so late November. So baseball season was over. However, there was kind of a buzz about the Cleveland baseball team amongst my classmates. And when you're new in town and your classmates are into something, you kind of get swept up, right? So that is kind of how it all started. I had some friends who followed baseball. I was new in town and I found a way, to make friends, to make my way into the existing relationships of my classmates.
So you became an Indians fan. And
Correct.
then when you moved to Chicago, did you leave behind the Indians and become
No way. I can't leave them. It's a bad relationship, but I will say this. I did start following the Chicago Cubs because they're not a division rival, and no one ever expected that there would be a World Series with both the Cubs and Cleveland. It just was never a thing that I thought would happen. And I moved to Chicago in 2001. So the internet wasn't exactly where it is right now. So I didn't have too much access to Cleveland games, but I could just hop on the L and go to Wrigley. And I lived on the north side, so hopping on the Red Line was just a few stops away. I also made a lot of friends because of the Cubs. My college roommate, Lisa, who I'm still friends with, she is a big Cubs fan. Big Cubs fan. She definitely sort of indoctrinated me into Cubs culture.
Cool. Well, I'm a Mets fan, and I never left that behind when I left New York, so I get that idea. And they've had their ups and downs, but I just saw tonight they came from behind and beat the Yankees 9-7.
All right.
Pete Alonso hit a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 10th inning, and we won.
As a Blue Jays fan, I'm always gonna go with Yay beating the Yankees. So
I mean, I feel like everyone except Yankees fans has that exact same sentiment. I was actually asked recently, what would I do if Frankie Lindor went to New York? And I was like, what's New York?
He could come to the Mets. He could come to the Mets. No.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine.
See, because that's how I felt about the Indians once I came here. Was they're not in my same division, so I can feel I can root for the Indians sort of, and I root for them at the end of the season if it looks like there's a chance that I keep hoping that my Mets and the Indians could be in the World Series together, so I'd get to see the Mets play in person.
Can I tell you, as someone who also has two teams, you do not want that. You think you want that. You think you want your home team and your second home team to play until it's game 7 and there is a rain delay and you are stressed out and you're like eating a comforter because you don't know what to do with yourself. It is the worst. I mean, it was a great experience. I don't mean to take away from it, and I'm being overly dramatic, but man, watching Chicago fans celebrate was I mean, in my face, literally, my neighbors. Like, it was rough.
You're like, that's
So
wrong.
rough.
That's
Yes.
just wrong.
And they still wear these stupid shirts that say the greatest baseball game ever played on was it a Wednesday or a Tuesday in Cleveland? I'm like, I hate Wednesdays. I hate Cleveland. Like, what? You don't want it.
I had that was a possibility, that same World Series, because the Cubs is my other team. And the Jays made it like as far as they had made it since they won the series in '93. And I was like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do if they both end up in the series together?
It's not good. It's not good.
Well,
I mean,
it's
fun.
tell you, it is. So my oldest brother is a huge Royals fan. I don't know how that happened, but he has been since he was little. So the year that the Royals and the Mets played in the World Series, my brother calls my mom and says, "Who do you love more?" I'm like, "John, you can't." He's like, "Well, I had to ask." And mom's like, "I love you both. And I don't
That's what she
do
has to
sides."
say.
I'm like, "Mom." And then the Royals won, and she was like, "I was secretly rooting for them."
That would have been the year my mom didn't watch the World Series.
Yeah, well, you know, we've at least won. In 1986, I got to see him win, so it's all good. So
I've never seen my team win.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they have not. They're the longest now since Boston. So we keep thinking they're going to be due one of these years, but it's not going to be. Unfortunately, it's not going to be this year. But
wow.
that's another story. I don't know what's going to happen this year. It's all crazy. So I just watch and hope that my Mets don't implode every night, because they seem to. But so you have baseball love on one side, and so we know how you sort of got started there. So how about the writing side? How did that all come to? Why writing?
I've always loved writing. I am one of those people who I didn't study journalism, but I read. And I've always been a reader. As a young child, my mother would tell you how she had to encourage me to go outside with other kids and stop reading. I was a book it kid. I was a do my summer reading in June kind of kid, because I needed time for other books. And so the writing just came naturally. I remember when I was little, I used to write poetry. I tried to write my own origin story as if I thought I was a superhero, you know?
That's awesome. That is awesome.
But like, I didn't know then that that's what I was doing. But now I look back and I read some of the stuff that I've written and I'm like, wow, I thought I was really something special. I took creative writing in high school. It's just kind of always been a thing for me. And then there's the research aspect that I really like, because I kind of believe that you're forever a student, whether you're in school or not. And so the writing and the research just kind of came together for me. It's fun. I enjoy sort of falling down the rabbit hole. Like, if something interests me, I want to keep going. I don't necessarily need to know everything, but I do get to a point of where I become like a mild expert on the most random things.
That's cool. And it is that's such a really fun way to see all those pieces come together. So I have to ask then, being a reader myself and having much the similar, I used to walk to school. I lived in a small town, and I read the book as I walked to school every day, until one day I kind of took a stumble or a detour or something, and I walked right out into the street, and one of my friends' moms almost hit me. And that was when they said, "You have to stop doing that." I was
my goodness.
I was just it only happened once in all the years. I used to stand at school and lean against a pole and read a book all the time. So
I was that kid too.
Yeah. So do you have and I'll ask it this way, a favorite book, a favorite author, or a favorite genre, or one that you maybe not, and sometimes it's not even a favorite, it's just one you return to more than others?
So I read so much and I read across genres. So I would say if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be historical fiction, which is probably a surprise for most people to hear that, because I read so much nonfiction. But historical fiction is kind of a combination of my interests, if you will. Because, well, I love history, but then there's kind of the mystery of adding, the fiction to it. I really, really enjoy that. Favorite writers, I cannot choose, but I will tell you this. I love Zadie Smith so much that when she was at the University of Chicago, I took every book that I owned by her and made my friends
Go up and get them.
Yeah, because I wanted all of my books signed. And when I was in line, I told her that, and she was like, just give me all of your books. And she signed every single one. She was so polite. She was super nice. And she didn't seem bothered by it at all. In fact, she asked me what lipstick I was wearing. So I feel like Zadie Smith is my BFF now. And then secondarily, I have a Juno Diaz tattoo. So maybe I'm going Zadie and Juno for like my two current I really loves.
I understand, and I like that, the current, because that's always what happens until something, and you're like, ooh.
And that author could be from like the 1600s for all you know. You just haven't picked up their book yet.
Hence my background. Those are probably from the 1600s.
Probably.
Oh, wow. So, along a slightly different twist on that question, as you've moved into the world of writing, are there particular people that you find as have been an inspiration for you? And they don't have to be writers, but as you've sort of moved into this field?
Oh man, well, one of the people I really admire, it is a writer, and it's more so because of the way they presented the world.
Okay.
And that's James Baldwin. And I just feel like, especially because I write about culture, as African American people and how we impact the game of baseball, I feel a deep relationship with some of Baldwin's work right now, because he talked a lot about culture. He wrote letters to people, and my most recent piece was a letter to Jackie Robinson. And I didn't make the connection until one of my friends texted me and was like, hey, your piece reminded me of Baldwin's like letter to teachers. And I was like, that is the greatest compliment anyone could ever pay me. But I just think he's so inspirational. And I love when people say, I think it was Ta-Nehisi Coates who said it, always read your Baldwin. And I have Baldwin books, but that tweet made me pick up and reread. And I view his work so differently at this present stage in not only my life, but the world than I did the first time.
Sure.
And it's really shaping my view.
Well, he certainly has maintained a contemporary, I mean, he wrote many years ago, but what he has to say is still so relevant in so many different ways. And so, and I also, the Jackie Robinson piece, that was exactly what I thought of, is that whole, and I was like, I wonder if that was the inspiration. And so it kind of was. So
maybe subconsciously.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes that's what an inspiration, it's just becomes so, and you don't even realize necessarily that's where it came from until you stop and pause. So many subjects out there that you could explore and you have explored, and we're going to talk about a few specific ones here, but just in general, how do you go about choosing what you're going to write about?
The topics choose me. Hear me out though.
Okay.
I find that I will be watching TV, watching a game, scrolling social media, and something will pop out to me. And I'm not kidding you. It's just like a light bulb turns on and I grab my phone or my laptop and I start searching or I start looking, because I'm always looking for like, what's the hook? Like what's interesting me in this? And then is it going to interest someone else? And so I sit with these ideas for a while. I mean, before I even present them to an editor, I let them kind of, get within my spirit a little bit.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll have an idea and it won't be right. Not the idea, but the timing, like I won't feel ready to write about it. And then months later, that same topic, I'll be like, now is the time. This is the moment. It just, I don't know. I really feel like the pieces come to me as opposed to me going to look for them.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And that's how I hear that sometimes with fictional writers when they say, ask them that and they say, no, it has to feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my favorite pieces that you have written, just partly because out of my own interest, but that I thought was an absolutely brilliant piece of writing and a brilliant piece of historical research, is your Speak Their Names.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, and so for people who haven't read that, you should just go look it up. It's a perfectly brilliant piece of writing.
We'll link it in the description.
Thank you. You had to choose the individuals that you picked. And maybe part of I'll just be honest, part of the reason I liked it was Pete Hill's in there. And so I was like, but there were so many choices. How did you come to decide, even on that one, which ones you were going? And
well, first, I got to tell you, I actually looked up every single person the project had actually, succeeded in getting a gravestone for, because I just kind of needed to feel,
okay,
which way was I going to go. But then I didn't pick for sure. The only person I knew that I was absolutely going to include was Olivia Taylor, because no one had ever heard her story, including me. And I absolutely knew that she was going in. But then when I talked to Jeremy, he was the person who kind of inadvertently guided me to some of the people, because I would ask him, well, which story do you think is the most devastating? Which story, do you think was the most whatever? And I mean, we were on the phone for a long time. And then I had to kind of go through my notes and pick out things he said and then keep digging. But that one was, that's one of my favorites. I'm really surprised that you mentioned that one, because it's 4 years old.
But it's an amazing piece.
And that's one of the first things I've written. Like, that was very early. I started writing in 2016, maybe.
Okay.
And it just kind of picked up from there. That's what I mean. It feels like divinely inspired every time.
Well, if that was one of your first pieces, then you got off to a great start, because that piece, I thought that piece was amazing, and I loved, and it's such an important, it's also an important piece. And so you mentioned Olivia Taylor as one of the people, and so for most people listening, they probably still don't know much about her. Can you tell everybody just a little bit about Miss Olivia Taylor?
Absolutely. First, we're not related, maybe, who knows? But second, Olivia Taylor was the first woman to own a team, technically speaking. We like to say it's Effa Manley, but if you dig a little deeper, it's Olivia Taylor and her husband, C.I. Taylor, who is basically Black baseball royalty. His entire family played baseball and they were very, very good. He passed away and Olivia was left with the team. She didn't own the team for long for a number of reasons. And, she got into fights with his brother about how the team was going to go, but she still owned it and still is a part of history. And her story kind of flew under the radar. And then this grave marker project came along. And then the city of Indianapolis decided to, start recognizing her. So maybe someday, there'll be a correction, if you will, to history, and Olivia Taylor will be included. But she's amazing. I found it super fascinating.
It's very cool, because you're absolutely, and it's kind of surprising, because we live in a country where everybody likes the first. We always want to, and we always want to get to the first. And so it's kind of interesting that she doesn't get the credit that she's due. And not only for baseball, but she was also so heavily involved in the NAACP as well, locally. And I mean, she's got an amazing story that hopefully is going to get more and more recognition one of these days.
Well, and it's so funny too, because on top of us, like we're a culture that likes first. We're all like, baseball is a culture that likes weird facts.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it was such a short amount of time, and I'm actually really glad I knew who Olivia Taylor was before you guys started talking about her. While it was such a short amount of time and it was on a technicality, like, it's still a weird fact. It's definitely something that, like, I could hear a baseball announcer throwing into a game today.
Yeah.
And then we don't. Like, it's something
Right.
that is so glossed over.
Yep. And it, well, we're all working to correct that. And
Absolutely.
And that's what so many of your stories are. So I'm going to switch gears on one of your stories, because here's another one that I thought was fascinating, and it was also written in 2016. And it was your piece about bringing back a ladies' day at a ballpark. And I think it struck me as so fascinating because I'm really curious for you to describe your argument, because I don't think it's going to be what people expect. And then I'm curious to see if you got any reaction to it, because just the idea of, like, bringing back a ladies' day to a lot of people seems like an anathema. Why would you? That's sexist. That's all these things, right? But that's not the way. And so I think that's why I was so intrigued when I saw the title and then I read the article and I'm like, yes. Tell us a little bit about your argument, and more importantly, did you get any reaction to it?
Of course I did. Of course I got a reaction to it. And it wasn't all positive.
I had figured as much. Somehow I knew that.
That piece was rooted in, well, first, I am a woman, hello. But also in that my experiences as a sports fan in general, as a woman, not always good. Not always good. I don't feel like people respect what we bring, whether it be how smart we are, how athletic we are, any of these things, we don't get credit. And I also feel the same way that people of color are sort of erased from history, so are women. And the Ladies' Day piece was really about that. Like, let's bring the girls back to the game. Let's, and not with like wine nights and pink jerseys, and no, let's do some real empowerment. Let's talk about some women who played baseball. Let's talk about queer women. Let's talk about, let's get into it. Women have done so much for the game, period. We don't need to like put any kind of quantification on it, period. And we get left out consistently. So that argument surprised people.
Yes.
Because they thought that we all like pink jerseys. Everybody wants a V-neck. And like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things, because there are people who like those things, but I am not a pink jersey girl. I want to wear the same colors as the guys on the field.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And all due respect to everybody who likes pink, that's just not my style, and I really feel like that is what I bring, is I am a woman. We are here, and you will give us the respect that we are due, and not in cute ways and ways that satisfy masculinity. And, there's a part in that piece where I mentioned that a man sued because he thought it was sexist that women were allowed at the game and he had to pay for it, which, buddy, come on. Like,
really?
Right. And when I was researching that, the first thing I said is, of course a man sued. Of course.
We all could have predicted that. Yeah.
Right. Like, of course. This is definitely the kind of guy who gets upset at the car wash for giving women $5 off on like Tuesdays, But that's what that piece was. It was just trying to take the whole, we empower women with pink jerseys and talking about breast cancer and serving wine on its head. That's really what that was for me.
Yeah, and that's why it resonated with me, because I've always felt that way, and I teach my classes about the early ladies' days and then try to explain what really this is all about. And so good did you get, and I'm, this is revealing probably, were most of the negative reactions from men?
Of course, 100%.
Just confirming what I thought, but
yeah, it's very rare that when I say something that is empowering people, that women get upset. I mean, it could be that maybe we are more empathetic, or maybe, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate on that silliness. It's just like, how can you be upset about wanting someone else to feel good about something? It doesn't take away from you in any way. But of course, men were like, this is so sexist. This is, they want to be treated equal, but they want to be treated special. Yes, exactly that. Like, I love when they make the argument for me.
Yep. Well, I was just listening to something the other day, and they were talking about, I forget which team it was doing a Women's Day at the ballpark. And they kept stressing over and over again, you don't have to know anything about the game to come. We're going to have all kinds of things for you. And it won't all be baseball related. And I'm like, then why are you having it as a Women's Day at the ballpark?
Because they don't think that like women are actually interested in the game. They think that we're there for the butts. We can be there for the game and the butts.
Yes. Well, it's, you know, it's so funny because I grew up in there's 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. And my little brother is the one that is the least interested in baseball. You know, he's the one we're dragging to the ballpark and whatnot. And, you know, my sister and I are like hanging over the rails, like yelling at the umpires and like whatever player has messed up the last play. And my brother's just like, I mean, it's a good atmosphere to be hanging out in.
Yeah.
That's how it is for me with dating. I'm always like, let's go to the ball game. And guys are like, you want to go where?
Yeah. You take me to the ball game. Like, that's
so you epitomize the true history of that song, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because people don't know the history of that, and they think and it's like, no, if you actually know all the verses, it was written by a woman who wanted to be taken to the ball game.
It was a date.
Sounds like a great date.
I personally think, and I would suggest this to other people who date, first dates, ball games, you learn a lot about a person. If somebody talks through the whole game, do you want to date them? If they don't, you know, like if they don't know that you don't move when the ball's in play, do you want to date them? If they don't know how to pass a beer down the aisle, run.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm right there with you. You just nailed that 100%. That's awesome. Oh, the trials and tribulations, but okay. So you've written on so many different subjects. You've got a most interesting person or topic that you've interviewed or written about? If you had to sort of, what's captured your fancy?
PUMPSIE Green. I think PUMPSIE Green is so fascinating, and he passed away shortly after I wrote that piece.
Right.
It was real crushing because I was like, wow, I was really trying to get him more, you know, recognition, and he passed away. And what fascinated me about him was he didn't want to be, he never wanted to be where he was in history. He didn't want to be the first Black player for the Red Sox. He didn't want to be on the last team to integrate. He didn't even want to be in Major League. He just wanted to play baseball in California. And I find that so interesting because everything describes him as a reluctant pioneer. Like, think about that. Like, and then when his time in baseball was over, he just quietly went away.
Yep.
Isn't that kind of amazing that he historically made an impact?
Yep.
But to him, it was like, I didn't even want to be there. I didn't want to deal with that. I just wanted to play baseball.
Yeah.
I just found that really kind of heartbreaking too, because
Sure.
he went through a lot for, you know, people who never really fully grasped what he went through for them, you know? Anyone who came up after him, anyone who plays now, any African American who wants to go to the game, like PUMPSIE Green made it okay for us to even be at a ball game in Boston. You know what I mean? I just find that so like fascinating that he just didn't want to be there, but he did it anyway.
Yeah, because he loved the game so much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it took him. And what's fascinating, I think, is the fact that he played in Boston of all places, one of the most racist and most difficult cities that all through the Negro history. When you ask them where was the worst places to play, Boston and Philadelphia were always the two that came up. And here he was. And think about some of the more recent things that have happened in Boston.
Yeah,
And
well, now they're admitting that it happened. For a while, they weren't saying that it was the truth. It's kind of amazing how all of a sudden it's like, oh, now you're admitting that all of these guys were telling the truth for all this time.
Yeah. So for people who really want to read about Boston's racist sports history, you should read Howard Bryant's book, Shutout, because that will really give you that great history and put some of this in perspective. But I've always thought PUMPSIE Green was a more fascinating story and had to be a more interesting person than what we are typically told. And so you're that piece. So far in your career, what has either surprised you or challenged you the most?
I have an answer for both.
Okay.
Surprise has been just the support. I never ever thought that a girl who started a blog one day would have people following me on social media just to hear my thoughts on what's happening in baseball, because I would always just be watching baseball anyway. You know what I mean? That is a massive surprise. The support, the impact that the things that I write, the things that I say have, that is still surprising. This conversation, surprising. It's just really nice to be interested in something and care about it, and other people be like, yes, that is what we need, you know? I'm learning as I go, and I'm kind of dragging everyone else with me, and I kind of enjoy that. What's been challenging? Well, there's so many things. One thing for sure has been just dealing with criticism.
Okay.
I don't think that anything that I say or write is super controversial. I'm merely telling the truth. I'm not saying things that can't be proven. Whenever I write something, I cite my sources.
Right.
Even if I'm giving like cultural commentary, I link you to the things that I'm referring to, just so you can know what I mean. And yet, I still get so much like, you know, I'm playing the race card, and I'm like, hey, that doesn't exist. Or why does everything got to be about being white or black? And it's like, well, I can't stop being black, so I'm not gonna, you know, act like it doesn't exist. That is some of the strongest thing, is just dealing with the trolls, the, you know, people who are just gonna never be satisfied with whatever I'm doing. And then one of the other things that I find challenging is the community. Like, while I have found my own very awesome baseball community, which you know, it now includes you all, and I have other friends, and it's great. I also find that a lot of people try to, maybe not intentionally, maybe they don't mean it, but they kind of push me down. You know what I mean? And I don't think I get any opportunities just because I'm Black. I think I get a ton of opportunities because I'm smart and I know what I'm talking about, and I need people to understand that. Like, I'm not just, it's not a ruse. Like, I'm not playing a game. I'm not getting, there's no gotcha to come later. I am who I am. And I don't pretend to know everything, but I let you know, I'm going to find out. I'm going to, what I don't know, I'm going to find out. I'm going to keep digging, and I'm going to keep sharing it. And the people who are the positives kind of keep me going against the challenges there.
Sure. Well, and it's fascinating because, I mean, that's exactly the way it should be, right? Mm-hmm. Your work, what you do, should speak for itself and show people, yes, I know what I'm talking about, and why should that surprise you?
Yep.
And the depth of the kind. If people read one of your articles, they will immediately know the depth of your research because it's always there.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I don't think I can do anything without it. Like I said, forever a student. I'm pretty sure my old English teacher is like, look at this girl. I got on her about citing her sources one time, and she took it to heart.
Well, as historians, we're sitting there going, yes, thank you for citing your sources.
So historians and archivists are the people who support me the heaviest. So shout out to all historians and archivists, because I've probably bothered you for something, asked you for a contact. Please send me a PDF. I mean,
We're all sitting there ready, like, what can I send it to? Do I need to like shout it from the rooftop? Can you hear me from over here?
I feel like we're working together, you know, like you all are getting the information and making it accessible, and I am putting it out there in my own way, but I feel like, you know, we're kind of working in tandem. I've always had mad respect for people who just touch books all day. It's a dream.
It's an awesome life, I'm telling you. But it also leads to stuff like this podcast and you know, being able to again expand our baseball networks and stuff like that.
Well, and as you pointed out earlier, put the books, the writing, and baseball love together. And yes, all the challenges, but I think the benefits far outweigh, and the people that you meet and the things that we discover are so cool. You know, I never thought I could make a living teaching sports and writing about baseball. I didn't know you could do that. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. So before I sort of turn it over to Kate, because I know she's got some questions that have come in from other people. Obviously, you've got followers, you've got people who are starting to look up to you or could be. And so I'm wondering what kind of advice you might have for people who want to do what you're doing, and especially given some of the challenges in the world today, if you had a message for young Black girls who want to, because it's you and Claire Smith.
That's so
which I know
to hear.
But it is, and I mean, I hate to say it, but and so yeah. What do you say? What advice would you give? What do you tell?
My first piece of advice, and I give this advice to my friends, I stole it from my best friend Shantivia. It is, take the leap and the net will appear. And I think that is probably some of the most profound thing that my friend has ever told me, because I've been repeating it to myself for 20 years. And if you want to do anything, if you want to write, whether it be about baseball or ice fishing, do it. Don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity. Don't wait for someone to ask you. Don't wait for someone to approve of you. Just do it. Do it yourself. A domain costs like $10. Like, you know, WordPress is free. Do what you need to do to put your voice out there. Anyone who wants to see it and anyone who is receptive to it, they will be there. I am a living witness. I started a blog because I lost my job and I just wanted to go to baseball games while I looked for a new job. That is how I started writing. And so if I can do it, anybody can. And you know the depths of your heart, you know how good your writing is. You don't need anyone to validate you. Like, do it, just do it. And if you're a young Black woman and you want to write, email me. Start your blog and email me, and I will be your sister. I will be your cheerleader. I will read whatever you want me to read. I can't edit you because I'm a terrible editor. That is why other people edit my writing. But I am really good at kind of nudging people or giving ideas. I'm a good sounding board. That is one of my goals in this whole thing, is to create a community where girls like me, who 10-year-old me, have space where they can say, that person looks like me. That person makes me want to be interested. The number of Black women who follow me on Twitter just because I'm a Black girl talking about baseball, it warms my soul, because do you know how hard it is to get other women to go to games with me? Not just Black women, most women. Mm-hmm. And that's because the environment has made them uncomfortable, not because they aren't interested. And so that's my advice. Take the leap, the net will appear. Do it. And if you need support, email me, tweet me, DM me. I got your back.
And Shakeia's contact information will be at the end of the episode and linked in our episode notes.
Awesome. That is some of that quote is so cool. I was just thinking about it as you were talking, but it addresses the biggest issue, right, for most of us, which is fear. Fear mm-hmm. holds us back. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of not being good enough. And you're just saying, if it's what you want to do, go for it.
Just do it. I mean, what do you have to lose, really, right? Like, I know that's such a cliche thing, like, what do you have to lose? But really, what do you have to lose if you start a blog? Either people read it or they don't, but your words are there and they still matter. Whether one person reads them or 1,000 people read them, they still matter. I think what has to happen with women of all ages is we kind of have to just understand that we don't need other people. We need to have the confidence of men, because men don't do that. I can't imagine a man sitting at home and being like, oh my God, am I good enough? Maybe they do, not to say that men don't, but I feel like we do it so much more. Just do it, whatever it is. You want to be a rocket scientist? Go after it, even if you're 72. Like, just do it. That's kind of where I am just in life right now. We see how short it can be. I'm not saying it is, but it can be.
Oh, absolutely.
So if there's something that you want to do, just do it. Take the leap, man. Like, what's stopping you but you?
And I think that most people, at least that I personally know, that are literally doing things that they love to do, would not give it up, it's their dream, are people that have had that moment of, you know, why not? Why don't I go back to college at 40 and get my PhD? And yeah, so history and archives is not
somebody
a money maker.
Or somebody they trust who says something profound like that quote that gave you that. You know, I had a friend in grad school who just, when he said, well, what do you want to write about? And I said, baseball. And I said, but they'll never let me. And he said, well, why not? And I was like, oh.
Who is they?
I never thought about it like that. I just sort of assumed that it would not be. And if he hadn't said that to me, I don't know if I would have done that or not. And
It was like the light bulb moment of realizing that, like, I was injured before high school, so I ended up stopping playing my sport, and it took me to college to realize that I could actually study and write about sports in that context, and that people would read about women that play baseball, or people would like search out that content. I had no clue, had no idea.
One of the things I ask myself frequently when people say, why do you do this, is if not me, then who?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. True. So are you working on any particular story right now?
No, well, not like as in the I'm typing it sense. It's kind of marinating.
Yeah, well, given what you told us earlier, I was like, where is it?
Marinating. I think I told you this in like a conversation, but I've been kind of going down the Satchel Paige. Like, I know about Satchel Paige, but I've been going like deeper into the Satchel Paige thing. And I have an idea, and if you're listening to this and you steal my idea, I'm coming for you. I really want to kind of talk about Satchel Paige's Dominican Republic season.
Yes.
And I want to talk about, the dictator involved and the violence involved and the potential loss of life involved, and then the banning from the Negro Leagues. And I feel like there's something there. I'm digging for it. You already know.
Have you read? I'm assuming you've read Satchel and the Dictator, right?
I have it. The Dictator.
Yeah.
I have it. When I'm reading for the purposes of writing, I kind of read very slowly, because at any moment I miss something and I want to make sure exactly that I'm getting it all in. And so I've been just kind of poring over that book. And another person who really interests me, but I have not found my entryway, is Roberto Clemente. I saw something that is fascinating and probably controversial to some people, but I saw something refer to him as African American. And I was like, well, in the general definition, I guess that would be true. But how would someone who is Latino feel about that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've been kind of dipping my toe in the Clemente waters a little bit.
Well, that interestingly question came up and has come up many times with Minnie Minoso. And the issue of, was he Black or Latino or both, and when he came up the last time for the Hall of Fame vote, that was one of the questions that came up. Does he get put in for his Negro League play or for his Major League Baseball play where he is and some people have said he's the first Black to, and then they're like, no, he was the first Latino to play on it. And so it's a similar kind of issue.
That's an interesting subject to me, simply because I believe that we cannot separate the two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The same way I am not more Black than I am more woman. I feel that's the same. And a lot of Latinos who are Black feel that their Blackness gets erased often. I have a few friends who kind of go through that a lot, because people would be like, you're not Black, and they're like, yes I am, I just speak Spanish.
Right.
And I really think that's also something that Major League Baseball is going to have to address within themselves.
Absolutely.
Because, well, first, in the way they keep the demographics, because it's not right. You can't put people, all Black people are not African American. That is what I'm trying to say. And all African Americans are not Black. And so we have to kind of correct that. And as far as those two people, they both said they were Black. Roberto Clemente said he was Black multiple times. He even referred to himself as a minority. Like, it's important that we kind of acknowledge both. We can't just say he's Latino, because he wouldn't have just said that, and neither would Minnie Minoso.
And I mean that becomes the issue we consistently, as we educate ourselves in the popular society about intersectionality and what that really means and what that complexity means, and then the language behind our own self identities. Like, if Roberto Clemente says he's Black, he is Black. And
who are we to tell somebody what they should be?
We've had this conversation.
I mean, I'm sorry.
We've had this conversation in the queer community for decades. Like, if I tell you I am something, I am not something else. So that sounds
I've never really understood arguing that. I've
Yeah.
never understood arguing that. You know, like when someone tells me they want to be called something, that's the end of the conversation.
Absolutely.
I'm going to call you what you just told me you prefer, and that's that. Like, if you were like, I actually prefer to be called Anthony, I would just call you Anthony, and I wouldn't, you know, like, I don't know, maybe that's just the way I function, but I think it's super easy to just call people what they want to be called.
It's their choice. I mean, and who are we to tell some? I mean, I always tell, we wouldn't like it if somebody did that to us. So why do we? It's so simple. It's so simple.
It doesn't harm me in any way for you to be whoever you want to be.
Right.
Doesn't harm me at all.
Well, I think I will look forward to what you decide to do with all of that, because those are fascinating questions, and this has been truly a fun conversation. And so I hate to, but I'm going to turn it over to Kate, because I know she's got a few questions, and we want to make sure that we get a chance to see what other people had to ask.
Yeah, so we do just have a couple, and some of them you have touched on a little bit in our previous conversation, but if you want to expand more or just be like, see above, you know. So Lori from Facebook asks, how have your identities and interests clashed in your career as a writer, whether personally through self-conflict or professionally with others? And how have you dealt with and resolved these issues?
Wow.
Hey, Lori. Why you gotta be so tough? Give me the first part of that one more time, please.
Okay. How have your identities and interests clashed in your career as a writer, whether personally through self-conflict or professionally with others?
Let's see. My identities. Well, I can say that my race has a big deal to do with everything these days, whether I want it to or not. And my gender, well, the only thing I have going for me that makes it a little easy, Lori, is that I'm straight, but I'm still Black and I'm a woman, and it's hard. I get a lot of criticism on both things frequently. Either I don't know enough, or I think I know too much. My experiences aren't valid depending on who you ask. And then to some people, my experiences are too valid. And I just think that my place in all of this with my identities is to just, can I say a curse word?
Yes.
Just shake shit up. That is what it is for me. The woman in me, the Black person in me, I just want my identities. The whole point, I like making people uncomfortable. That is what I'm doing. And it's fine, because my discomfort will mean that the person after me may not have to deal with it anymore. Or maybe it's lessened for them. Or maybe I can put myself in front of them. But I definitely try not to view my identities as any kind of detriment in any way. If you have a problem, that's a you problem, not a me problem.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've been screaming from the rooftops for like the last 3 years of like, have uncomfortable conversations with me, please. Like, it makes both of us better people, usually. So
for the most part, yeah, of course.
Well, it will if correct me if I'm
both
wrong.
parties are
If it's a true
if it's
a true conversation.
Yes.
Because if it's not a conversation, then it's something else.
Like,
and
I mean, my identity is definitely clash in a completely different way than yours identities or Leslie's identities. And I'm just, please have uncomfortable conversations with me. It will help us move forward.
Liking sports as a woman is difficult anyway, because they don't love us back. Right. They don't love us back. And we constantly have to deal with, there's so much misogyny and homophobia and
even in women's sports.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just, and it's everywhere. It's pervasive. You cannot get away from it. And I think the only thing we can do is remain diligent, like, I don't care about whatever you're doing over there. And that's kind of how I take it. One day at a time. I get some criticism. The one thing I have kind of learned to do in all of this is never read the comments.
Okay.
When I first started writing, admittedly, I wanted people to like what I was writing. So I read the comments. Now, I don't care. It's out there. I know it's good because I wrote it. So if you don't like it, it ain't for you.
Yeah, and like, I've got that one person that will lie to me and tell me they think it's good, even if they don't think it's good. So if I need that little bit of validation, be like, pretend you read this, please.
That feels like really good advice to give people, I think, Shakeia, is don't read your comments.
Yeah, don't do it.
Because isn't that where the trolls and all the tough, in today's social media world, that's where all the horrible stuff comes out.
Oh yeah, somebody said that I was a diversity hire at a place I don't work.
Congratulations.
You're like, oh, I didn't know I had a job there. Thank you.
Right. What is this bringing in for me? Like,
where's my paycheck?
The best part was it was in another, the place was in another country. So I was like, I don't even live there, but thank you.
So you go back to, right, is this when you, if you were actually to respond, you say, do the research like I do, and you would know that you're an idiot. But
I've actually said that to someone before on Twitter. I've literally was like, if you look this up, you would know you were an idiot. That's the other thing that I think is important with the people who are challenging is I don't back down. If I say this thing all the time when I do like radio or anything, and I'm like, hit me up, but don't be weird. I mean that. There is good weird and there is bad weird. And if you are bad weird, I will curse you out. Like, it is just the way I am.
Yeah. All right.
I think I answered her question.
Yeah, I think so. Who knows? But sorry, if not, Lori. She can reach out to you.
There you go. But don't be weird.
Don't be weird. Don't be bad weird.
Bad weird. Sorry, bad weird.
Yeah. Good weird is fine.
He's like, I'm weird. I know I'm weird, but I try really hard not to be bad weird.
Right. Don't be offensively weird. Just be weird.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. We gotta be.
Should be.
So Tara asks, and you've kind of touched on a couple of these things. Who or what inspired your line of work? And are there instances in your daily work that keep you motivated?
Ooh.
So, who or what inspired my daily work? Young me, James Baldwin, lots of books, history. So, fun fact, the other day, my 7th and 8th grade history teacher read my pieces and said she liked them. And that meant the world to me.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
So my history teacher, obviously I'm a giant nerd, you can tell. But my teachers, I know that sounds so lame, but when I was in elementary school, my librarian's name was Mrs. Henry. And she was a very proper woman with her suits and her ruffly collared shirts. And she wore a little too much perfume. And she was always available to me because Shakeia always needed a book. It was never a question if I always needed a book. So my librarian she's not my librarian anymore, obviously, but she will always be like A+ inspiration in my heart.
That's cool. That's so cool.
What keeps me motivated was that the second part? What keeps me motivated
in your daily work?
Honestly, it's meeting people like you all and other people I've come across. And I gotta say, we've talked about my challenges, but let's keep it real. For every challenge, I've met 5 fantastic people, that keeps me going. The idea that I'm making a difference, the idea that I am impacting history in something whose history I am studying, is just bizarre. You know what I mean? When I was nominated for a Sabre Award, which, wow, the first thing someone said to me is, if you won, I think you'd be the first Black woman to win. And I was like, well, shit, I gotta win. And I did not win, but you know what? I will.
Yes, you will. Oh, yeah.
Someday. So stuff like that, the fun keeps me going. I'm so interested in the sport. And if I never wrote again, I would still keep reading about it. I would probably still keep watching it. I don't know. I think I'm just kind of all in. I've found my thing, I mean, I already told people to take dates to baseball games to find out if they really like them or not. Like I think I've bought in.
Yeah, that's a pretty all in. That's a pretty all in.
Well, and when your people are like, you know what, that's a great idea.
I mean, it was a good idea though. But yeah, stuff like that keeps me going. And not even to sound cheesy, my friends. I have, everyone says this, the best friends. I mean, they are super supportive. They wear baseball caps to games with me, even though they don't want to. They are amazing. They read my work. And I know that everyone says their friends support them, but that's great. They should. But my friends, they read my work. They share my work. They comment. They share it with their parents. That keeps me in a big way because I'm not a big visit family kind of person. I've kind of created my own community. I'm not married. I don't have kids. It's me and my dog. So my friends, day to day, like my friend Jeanette, oh my goodness. If I had to say who day to day, it would absolutely be her because I had an experience with imposter syndrome, and anyone who does anything, especially writing, you've dealt with it. It's not that you are an imposter. It's just that you feel that way for a little bit, or you start to doubt yourself. Mm-hmm. And I called her, was just like, are you ever nervous? And she was like, no. And that kind of struck me. Like, you're never nervous? And then I thought about it, and I'm like, she's not nervous. I've never seen her nervous. Why am I nervous? Why am I doubting my own ability? I know that I know what I know. And that stuff like that keeps me going. I've talked about my friends a lot, but they're really a big part of how I got here.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
That is yeah.
A support network is truly important.
Yeah. I actually, because you talk about like kind of creating your family, I dedicated my master's thesis to my baseball family.
and all of the people that like had literally just carried me through that finish line of helping me find that thing, and then just full on support the entire way, whether it was, you know, a letter in the mail from Shirley Berkovich just on a down day, or, you know, Dr. Williams just being like, just give me something, give me like 3 sentences, that's all I'm asking for. So yeah, very much having that support system is
Do you know what's cool? My dad, when I was little, so this is I probably should have led with this. When I was little, my dad told me that I was going to be a sports writer, right?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, they don't make any money. I'm going to be a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. And it took a long time. And now, the other day, I posted something that I had done, and I tagged my dad, and I was like, well, you were right. We're here. And instead of just, you know, liking the post, he called me. I just wanted to make sure you were talking about me.
I was going to say, did he call you to tell you I told you so?
Yes, he wanted me to say on the phone that he was right. Yep. And awesome. as a woman who has, you know, it's my dad, so I'm a little girl when it comes to him. It just means so much that my dad thinks that his daughter knows so much about sports that he shares with his friends. He calls me so he can win arguments with his friends. You know, I love those phone calls. Hold on. I can hear him as he's like, my phone, I'm picking it up. And he's like, hold on. Let me get Kiki on the phone. She knows this. Who's going to win this game, Kiki? I'm like, wait, what game are you even talking about?
Like, need more words than game.
Yes. He asked me if he wants to like place a little bet with his friends, you know, he'll call me or text me and be like, you know, which one of these teams should I pick? And for some reason, that is just so cool to me that my dad and I connect on that level with sports, because you typically hear that it's fathers and sons, which can we stop that, please?
Thank you.
And you know, like, so my dad, he definitely is a big part of everything now because he reads it. It interests him. He would never be interested in me writing myself as like a superhero, but he does enjoy the baseball stories and, you know, the podcasts and stuff. And I think that's just dope.
I don't know, if you wrote your story as you being a superhero and your secret identity was as a sports writer, I'm sure he'd be all over it.
You do not want to know what that story was about me being a superhero. It was so bad. I'm like, I drew like, I mean, so it's like I was like a Greek god, you know, like there was lightning and thunder and the earth shook. And I was born and then everything was calm. It was like, who am I, Jesus? You know, like.
That's
but I
awesome.
had a vivid imagination.
That is truly awesome.
Well,
see,
so
your writing career was born right then.
Yeah, right there. So we are down to our last question. We are definitely running a little late on time. But definitely having heard some of your responses to things, I think that this is going to be a hilarious answer. Emily from Facebook asks, why is there still so little mainstream reporting on women's sports in major publications and sources? Why do I have to find an obscure, smaller publication to hear about them? Why are female athletes only celebrated mainstream nationally as Olympians or during the Olympics? And I'm going to preface this with, I know who asked this question. The answer cannot be the patriarchy.
That's not what I was going to say. I was actually just, well, kind of, but not that word specifically. Well, I think one of the things is the patriarchy. But we have been fed the lie that women are lesser athletes. We have been fed the lie that women's sports are not marketable. We have been fed the lie that, you know, they're just not good enough for us to want to watch, you know? And so all of that comes from a ton of things. It comes from misogyny. It comes from homophobia, because a lot of people think women who play sports are masculine. And so what if they are? You know, I think there's just so many things, right? It's all political, really. You know, it's like, we're not even talking about who's the best. We're just talking about whether or not they're male. Who cares? And that's why. And also because a lot of sporting related things are run by men. And when you start showing men that women are just as good as, if not better than them at something, they will rush to put the kibosh on it. But what I found that is that men who are equally talented, like, you notice NBA players, they support the WNBA. You never hear them say those women can't play.
Nope.
Never. It's always just some regular guy who can't, you know, run down his driveway, who has these views, right? But that's really what it is. It's sexism, it's misogyny, it's all of those things all wrapped into one. It's America. You know, we could talk about it in other countries, but I live here. Right. And it's the culture of this country. And I think that right now there's a really good movement to make that change, right? There are a ton of women covering sports. Follow them, read their work, share the links. Those obscure places that you're finding things, the editors at the big places, send them emails. Hey, have you heard of this writer? He or she is really good, you know, or, you know, they are fantastic and they can bring something to the game. I wrote about Ashton Lansdale.
Yes, you did.
And Ashton Lansdale is super dope. I can't wait for her MLB debut. When hopefully we get there. And that's a big thing for me. We need more stories on women athletes and not just the ones who are, you know, the big names. I love Serena, but we don't need more Serena stories per se. You know, like let's hear about everyone else. It's just the nature of the business. And I think people are really actively working to change it now, really pushing hard. And there's no better time to push for something than right now, because no one wants to appear to be anything negative. Nobody wants to look sexist. Nobody wants to look racist. Nobody, you know? So if you make them feel that they are presenting themselves that way, they will try to do something.
That's awesome. And I think in the world of social media, where we can literally just follow the writers that are writing the things that we want, you know?
Absolutely. Promote the people who are doing good work. I constantly, you know how there's this need now to sort of dunk on people who do something terrible or write something, and occasionally I'm guilty of it. However, I think it's also a good idea that we sort of suppress those people. Don't retweet them. Don't respond to them. Don't share their links. If you see something, I always say, don't give them the clicks.
Right. Don't give them the audience. Don't give them the audience.
Well, I've seen it mostly on Twitter, like, you know, putting the stars. So like, even if they search their name and they're not hashtagged, it can't pop up. Like that was such like a moment for me that I realized like I could talk, like I could express my anger and still not be giving them those extra clicks and that extra searchability. And it's
you could even
so
screenshot
weird.
Whatever they did.
Yeah, it's so weird, like that is some of the positives of communicating through social media in the way that we do now, especially when there seem to be so many negatives that go with it.
I have to say though, we can also, and please nobody get upset with me, but sometimes you gotta use bullying. It works. Bullying for the right things. Like, I have actively added people like, delete this. Not because I want to give them the attention, but because I really think they should take it down, you know, or like, you know, you really could have not tweeted this at all. You didn't have to write this. Right. So, you know, sometimes I guess it's just about like how you personally feel about it. If you want to give it the energy, bully them. But I mean that for positive things. And I don't mean, you know,
well, I mean, we've done that historically through, you know, like, women, one of the big ways that women got the right to vote was we just posted up outside the White House, like,
just bully him. You know, bad PR. People don't want bad PR now. Nobody wants their name associated with anything negative. But I think if we suffocate it, for real, if we just don't give it the light of day, it'll eventually die.
Yeah, of course it will, because what keeps it alive is that people keep talking about it. Just like these are why these, like your story, speak their names. We need to put those things out there. And because if you don't, it goes away. So if it works that way, it will work the same way for the people we want to get rid of, right? We just have to take the same approach. Don't talk about them. Don't give them the audience, because that's what they want anyway. Well, this has been an absolute blast and a true pleasure.
Fun.
And really, really appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat with us, Shakeia. And I look forward to further conversations where we can do this again. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us tonight.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Thank you, guys.
Are you interested in keeping up with Shakeia? Follow her on social media at CurlyFro on Twitter or at A Little Bit of Dope on Instagram. If you want to reach out to her, you can also email her at You can keep up with the IWBC at IWBC for me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're interested in becoming a member, please visit our website at internationalwomensbaseballcenter.org. If you liked our episode and are curious about our other digital content, don't forget to like and subscribe to IWBC Archive on YouTube. Thank you again for joining us for Step Up to the Sport. And thank you again to Leslie Heaphy